Welcome to the world of altcoin trading, where the parrot's wisdom is constantly aiding. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and crypto bots on display. The trading parrot leads the way. Oh yeah. With three commas, all trading we hunter in the midstream. Knowledge that's hard to resist. Medium and all cuts, the parrot souls of the trade. Join the stream, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Trading parrot souls of trade. Join the stream, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The trading parrot soaring guiding you through profits today. Oh, oh, oh.
Hello,
That
guys.
was awesome.
Yeah, I cannot stop smiling when I hear this music. It's so
That is so
really-
funny.
It's funny, isn't it? How are you, Keith, today?
I'm-
How was your
I'm-
weekend?
My weekend was action-packed. How about yours?
Between running, the family had some stuff prepared for the weekend, and I had to be constantly looking at my bots, my trades, my beast, my asks, and everything was extremely intense. I guess
It gets harder and harder to do with a new baby, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to put the baby to sleep, and at the same time, you're trying to fill that order, and it's not filling, and you start chasing it a little bit. It's crazy, but
guess what? I can tell you from experience that doesn't get any easier as they get older. I find that the market knows exactly when I have to go take my kids someplace or go do something for the family.
yeah. They just have a poo or something, out of the blue. You're suddenly having to leave. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to leave the deal and not enter.
yeah.
Yeah, you never know. Did you this weekend get stopped out in some deal, or you don't do much leverage? I know.
I don't do any leverage. So fortunately, no liquidation event for me.
Yeah.
I did. After an action-packed week and Saturday morning, I laid down to take a quick nap in the afternoon, and the market did not want that to happen. Alerts started going off, so I hopped up and I got back in front of my station and saw what was happening. And so I did have bids laddered down up to and through where price went to.
Mhm.
So I did get some fills, which I'm happy about, and I did close some positions that moved into loss. That in hindsight, they'd be back to profit today. But I had no idea. You have no way of knowing, especially when you have a geopolitical trigger like catalyst like we saw over the weekend. You don't really know how things are going to proceed. So, in hindsight, I did improve my cost basis, so that's a positive thing. I took some losses on some of those upper entries, but to me, that's the cost of mitigating risk when things are uncertain. So in the end, I'll be fine because again, I improved my cost basis, so that pays off for me. I didn't feel as much as I had hoped to, right? So I'm hoping I'll have another opportunity to do that. But nonetheless, I'm still in better shape than I was when I sold everything that was above 67, a few weeks ago. And I know you sold from 73. So were you able to?
Well, I was.
sold?
Yes, I did, but actually, I was getting nervous. I have to say, I have to admit, because I said we might still continue pumping, but I'm just not comfortable anymore holding this amount of Bitcoin and seeing so many toppy signals from my arsenal of signals. And I started saying, okay, I'm done. This time I'm going to do what I was supposed to be doing at 69, 65 in 2021, which is I saw all the signals. And at that point, I had probably 1% of all the indicators I have by today. And with those indicators, they were telling me sell, sell. And on the first top, I didn't. On the second top, I sold half, and I ended up riding the other half of my Bitcoin all the way to 17K. At this time, I say, no, I have too many indicators telling me the same. If I'm wrong, whatever, but
So
I'm
did
going
you
to
sell
sell.
it all, or did you hold anything from your lower
No,
entries?
nothing.
You sold it all.
I sold everything at 73K, and I went straight to my Twitter and I say, I sold all the remaining Bitcoin I had. I sold at 30, a big chunk. I sold at 50 something, another chunk, and at 73, the last bit. And I focus on where am I going to buy it next. And if I continue seeing some bullish things. Okay, we're going sideways, but every time that you see the 4-hour running hot and the daily running hot, you start asking yourself, are we going to go to 75? Are we going to go to 80K? And I'm going to be empty-handed. I have a heck of a lot of Ethereum, but no Bitcoin. So I started getting itchy about
How you
buying.
feel about Ethereum right now?
Oh, my Ethereum is ugly, and that's you always do something good and something wrong, right? So my Bitcoin is gone. I sold it at 73, and I'm happy because I bought a decent chunk, not big, not more than 30%, but I bought a decent chunk of Bitcoin at 61. I also put it on my Twitter. And Ethereum, I didn't do anything. And for some reason in my brain, it was working like, if the pullback is not that big, I might get a big pump from Ethereum. And I'm just going to ride my Ethereum for long term. And I was also sold with the idea of the Ethereum ETF. Not that I do everything based on that, but I was just thinking in the back of my head, it doesn't matter if Ethereum goes lower, eventually it's going to pump big, and I will have a better opportunity to sell than just below 4K.
And that's how I feel about Bitcoin. I hold very little Ethereum, and what I had or have is ugly. But I did pick up a nice order at 28.80 over the weekend on that dip. So, so that's nice. And I'm already, taking profit on some of that because I'm not married to Ethereum and I don't know what the future holds. As you know, I'm very heavy on the Bitcoin side and not so much of an ETH guy.
We got a question here from Jonathan. Any levels to short, guys? Just wanting a quick scalp to the retest of 60K. I'm just going to show my screen. I'm going to use this as an excuse to review the daily time frame. Let's see if we can make this a bit larger. So what you're seeing here, Jonathan, is for you, is the daily time frame. And this is my new version of the RSI. It's got some bands that are moving around, and you can find the source code if you are into such things more technical, or you want to use this custom version of the RSI. It's on my Discord server for free, the source code as well. But going back into the analysis, we got this channel going down, right? So this means momentum is still going down. I don't see the RSI at the moment building yet a double bottom, neither doing a higher high, just this humble move. By the way, in the morning, in my earlier stream, this was pointing like this. And what I say is that that thing is going to hit this resistance formed by this white line. So we missed that one because that was a great setup, right? When you lose support and then you approach it from below as resistance, it's a high quality one. Of course, you still always need to use risk management, but I wish I had time to do that. I dropped my daughter to the nursery, so I couldn't take this one, but I was kind of salivating looking at this potential short there. And right now, from the daily, there's not much that you can short, but let's look at the 4-hour. 4-hour, increase this on the RSI. We had a big fake out on, this was at 6 a.m. At 6 a.m. we were above the resistance, and I'm not used to see this. So this is showing again weakness. In the past, let's say 3 months, I haven't seen a single fake out of Bitcoin to the upside. Every single thing religiously that breaks out in the trend line of the RSI and stays there, then it's due for a big push to the upside. And seeing how this is selling back down in a fake out is behaving in a similar way that we were seeing before with the shorts. You will take a short in the previous 3 months and you will get a fake out, and because Bitcoin will continue pumping. Now Bitcoin is kind of doing the opposite in the 4 hours. So I'm not saying you should short this, but if you come back towards this resistance line, there is here a level at around 41 on the RSI. Is 2 levels that could push the RSI lower. And 41, let's see what price is that. I don't like giving the price because the price based on RSI level is constantly changing. I use this indicator called reverse RSI, that given a number of RSI, I can figure what is the corresponding price. So I can put here 41 that came from the RSI. I say that that level is a resistance. And if I enable it, it's going to give me a line, and it's going to tell me that this is resistance, that level there. Currently, that's a local level of resistance, 64.8. And in the RSI, it looks like this line here is currently the resistance. So what I'm looking for is rejection here, and then continuation to the downside. If we continue this bearish, because this is telling me stay bearish, there's a fake out to the upside.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's some confluence from that, with that on the chart in a couple of places, actually. If we go to the candle chart, let me share this with you. Okay. You can see that we have the trend line and the 50-day moving average right up here, which was our rejection, right?
Yep.
And relative to that, if I switch over to fire charts, you can see, would you say 64.8?
Yep.
And look where 13 million of ask liquidity is stacked.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
And so, we see that, this is certainly penetrable, but at the moment, there's not a lot of buying. That's, these are small orders. This is, whether this is likely retail. If it gets to be high volume, then I'll say that, it's an institution trying to, TWAP their way up, but this is not what TWAPing looks like. This is what it looks like when retail is buying and everybody else is selling.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of where the real strong resistance is, that's above 70K. And this so far really illustrates the dynamic of what's happening in the order book, right? Mm-hmm. We have some new bid liquidity that came in over the weekend down here at the 60K level, and that's protecting perhaps the lower low. We had this double bottom over the weekend, and so now there's one more lower low, and that's at 59K, depending on what exchange you're at, right? And so, interestingly, prices vary from exchange to exchange, and this double bottom on Coinbase and even on Bitstamp, this never penetrated this low, right? So this did not, obviously this low right here was taken out, but this wasn't much of a dip in my opinion. This is what I was really looking at. And then of course, this one down here on Binance, for example, it did wick through here. So definitely made a lower low, no disputing that. Bitstamp did not even, I don't think Bitstamp even made it down far enough. What was this? This was 61.3.
Yep.
And the low prior to that was 60,700. I don't even know that I would call this a double bottom. I mean, it's close, but it really didn't wick down as far as what we saw in other exchanges. Nonetheless, so maybe we have a little indecision in the market, right? That's nothing new. Maybe we have a little indecision that says, you know, and those perhaps may create some opportunities. I agree with you that we are trying to establish a consolidation range, and it looks less and less like that consolidation range is happening above 69K, right? We've just not been able to hold that level up there. So now where's the floor of this consolidation range? Is it above 60K? Are we going to hold above 60K and chop in this range? And people get frustrated with this chopping and sideways price action. And for me, I see it as a sign of strength, right? Bitcoin needs to consolidate. We had these huge quick runs that were not retested. And so consolidation, in my opinion, is healthy. It is what creates the strongest foundation for the next big move. Whether that move ends up being up or down remains to be seen, but we do have the halving coming up in, geez, listen, like 5 days, right? So obviously, a lot of the market thinks that after the halving, things go up, and I think that eventually things are going to progress through the next several months. But I do not allow myself to think that we go up only once we cross this line. It's a magic line in the sand. The price just shoots up. You know, we have lots and lots of history of that not being the case at all. I've shared this several times, and I'll show it again to anybody who hasn't seen it. Halvings, sure, they're very significant in terms of the cycle, right? And for the supply and demand, whether you subscribe to a stock to flow model or not is up to you. But look at all the times that we've seen large corrections, 20%, 30%, 40% around these halvings and even in bull runs. And so look at this, just before, just after, just before, just after. And so, you know, the market is getting excited about this halving coming up, and rightfully so. But don't allow yourself to think that price cannot dip and that we can't go retest potentially this low or this low or even go down here. You know, at the moment, you know, a lot of us have been calling for a larger correction, 20%, 30%, potentially 40%. And it hasn't materialized. And I'm the first to admit, I've been waiting for this for a long, long time, and it just has not materialized. So I went with what the market was showing me, and I've continued to trade and buy Bitcoin all the way up, right? But at this point, what would those corrections look like? From our new all-time high, which is around 73,800,
Mm-hmm.
20%, a 20% move gets us right to that 59K level. A 30% move gets us down to 51K, right? Anywhere in this zone is interesting to me. Maybe it's 53, maybe it's 52 where we had prior resistance. Anywhere in that range looks good to me. I look for the liquidity in the order book to give me a clue of where things might land. And at the moment, we don't see enough liquidity down here to hold. And then if we get that real deep move, 40% move takes us to 44K, where we had so much consolidation here, right? This never got retested, and this never got retested. So, you know, be mindful of the fact, I'm not a doom and gloomer. I'm not a perma bear. I'm just mindful of those because I see them as potential opportunities to improve my cost basis, get more Bitcoin at a lower price. This is a sale. If it happens, it's a sale.
Someone was telling me last week on Twitter, remember trading Parrot, 34K. And I say, why 34K? Oh, 34K, we never retest coming from above. So we just broke through and never came back to retest.
And that was a technical breakout level, 33, 34, something like that.
Yeah.
was a very technical level that If memory serves me correctly, I think I was coming back from a trip, something like that, when this breakout happened.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was a level that I looked at very, very closely and said, you know, can we still keep calling these, um, you know, bear market rally, bear rallies in these situations? And price continued to go up and up. From the technical side, in terms of technical analysis, then it's clear that we've had big bullish breakout moves. Whether they remain to be sustainable or not remains to be seen, or continue to be sustainable remains to be seen. And if they are, I'm fine, right? I'll buy the opportunities that come my way. After this move over the weekend, I think that was a bit of a shakeout. Sure, there was probably, there's a pretty significant geopolitical situation that may have been the catalyst, and this may or may not be the end of it. I don't know that it is. It's too early to know, but
I
you're
personally,
noting some bearish stuff in the chart, so obviously,
yeah,
you feel the same way.
personally, I'm more inclined towards thinking that this is not yet a pullback. That's when I look at this chart. This is 3-year chart, and I look what we are doing from this distance.
Right.
I will have say, oh yeah, we're going sideways. That's sideways to me. It's like a zigzag, slightly lower than the previous low, sure, but still, I don't see still a long line coming down as we
It's
used to
ranging,
see.
but it's a wide range,
Yeah,
right?
I agree that it liquidated a lot of people. And there's some numbers there, some records that happened in the past days, sure. And the alts are definitely having a rough time. But this still doesn't look to me like a proper, decent, painful pullback, crash, you
Well,
could
It,
say.
it, it was painful if you weren't looking for it. It was painful for a lot of people. I know that I mean,
I
I've,
mean, what I
I've
mean is,
I've been
I don't
hearing
mean
from
to say that
customers.
it's not painful. I mean to say that I'm used to seeing a lot more pain than that. And when I look at the weekly, and here's where I'm thinking, that's why I'm not deploying all my capital in one go at
Mhm.
61K. I'm just thinking, if I look at this structure, this is the full structure broadening of the full bull market. I
Mhm.
see everything here. And the setups I love are setups where I see multiple bounces on a line telling me that that is our support. And once it's broken, which on Monday we close this candle, this one that is smaller here is in progress. So we don't know if this is going to stay pointing down next Sunday. It might actually end up the week coming here and retesting this as resistance, in which case we're going to get to RSI 79. And believe it or not, if we go to an RSI 79 on the weekly, gosh, that is super bullish. We might even make a higher high. Yeah. If we get to 79, which is currently our resistance, that takes us straight into 78.8K. And that is just this arrow that I plot there, touching that trend line as a resistance. So we could have lost momentum, but price can still do a higher high and continue building this, which is my preferred setup, breaking a trend line and building a channel going lower. And not to go very far, if I show you that happened on the 4 hour, because the pattern is uh, constantly repeating. Like if you see multiple jumps like this, then we got this on the 4 hour. Look how long is it lasting, this channel to the downside. And on the daily, we were monitoring these jumps and we did this. And then before there were all these lines here, we already had some potential lines
Mhm.
here saying, here is our area. We need to be thinking we are going to be bouncing back and forward in here, and that has a 90% chances of happening. And going back to the weekly, we have already broken this, and I have already my plan. I'm going to play within this range there. And this means we can go very high, but also if we end up resetting around here, which this place, I call it home. So if we arrive home here, this is at around 57. That currently is located at 56K. But this is today. So if we measure what happens if we stay ranging here, we go to 80, we go back to 70, we break to 60, blah, 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 until we build this whole structure here. Eventually, this line might be lower or even higher. It depends. So that's why.
Stay on that screen for a second, because you illustrate two, I think, important things that especially new traders need to understand. One is that you said that you bought 61K, but you didn't deploy all your capital. You're saving some capital for a chance to buy lower. And two, you have this downrange target down there in the circle that you call home. And this, to me, is one of the most important lessons I've learned over the years, and that is to practice patience, right? Everybody got excited, price dip, let's buy. And many of us did, but did so strategically. I told you earlier, I think before that we started the stream, I didn't get filled as much as I wanted to, but I didn't chase it. And I didn't go, oh shit, it's not going to reach my price. I'm just going to buy here. I'll buy more at this level. I didn't do that. And so my next order may get filled higher. It might get filled lower, but I'm looking for that confirmation that I haven't seen yet. And I agree with you that there's an opportunity to potentially buy lower. So I think it's important that people, especially new traders who are coming into the market, aren't going all in one shot. Buy your way in, take your time, look for those opportunities, pick your targets, or buy on a schedule if you're not comfortable charting. Chances are, if they're watching this stream, they understand charting or they're trying to learn it. So it just, to me, it illustrates that you really got to be patient, because give things a chance to develop before you overexpose yourself.
Yeah, that's true. And the reason as well I'm still bearish is because I'm seeing the other time frames, the lower ones, is still below resistance here. And I can invalidate my thesis anytime. But if I see the right things happening around here, like if for example, the RSI came here and it showed strength, it goes straight to this line and then it finds support here, and we see something appearing slightly here, then I will say, this is the daily. I mean, this is not just the 4 hour or the 1 hour or something that can fake us out very quickly. It's the daily. And
right.
I don't play with the daily. I don't play with the weekly. Those two are like the bosses,
Right.
They tell me, pay attention now. The 15 minutes can go anytime. It can be wrong constantly. When I trade these setups on lower time frames, it can be a disaster. So you need to be very experienced with your stop losses.
So you mentioned alts a few minutes ago, and alts got a lot of alts got annihilated over the weekend.
Yeah.
And like everything else, we see nice recovery. With what you're seeing now in terms of both the price action we're seeing now with Bitcoin and the upcoming halving, what does that tell you in terms of when we have an alt season?
Alt season, very interesting question. Let's have a look. So alt season, so many things happened today. I covered this in the morning, actually, but it blew me away because we went to 39 in the altcoin season index. For those of you not familiar with this index, what this is measuring is the top 50 performance coins over the last season, which is defined by 90 days. So we have here like a ranking of all the coins, and we have BTC somewhere here. And because it's so close to the top, we are very close to a Bitcoin season. And that's something that 2 weeks ago we wouldn't have said ever. And because we were at 58, but suddenly over the weekend, this made it to 23. 23 means that 23% of the coins are the only ones that were outperforming Bitcoin that day on the 13th of April. Right now it's bouncing, sure, but we made it to Bitcoin season. Since when we are not in Bitcoin season? since 4th of November 2023. So we have all this proof. People are constantly saying, when is altcoin season coming? When is it coming? This was the altcoin season. The
Right.
move from here to there was your altcoin season. This was your dead cat bounce. And this is the disaster area coming back into Bitcoin season. And how do we know, or we don't know really, but how do we try to forecast what's going to happen next in terms of altcoin season? We look, sorry for my messy charts. I try to do my best not to be messy, but I forget to remove the things from
No, you should
the
just say I
previous one.
haven't. My kid has been scribbling on my charts. You can now use that excuse.
Yeah. She's too tiny for that, but I guess I could say that. So this is a weekly chart of the Bitcoin dominance. If you want to know what to do with alts, you look no further than the Bitcoin dominance. And the Bitcoin dominance shows you how much of the total market cap is in Bitcoin versus everything else. And throughout, the different markets, you have Bitcoin seasons because everybody's in Bitcoin, and then you have these lower areas here where you are in altcoin season, and that's because very little of the money is in Bitcoin. Not necessarily altcoin season bullish, but the funds are spread much more evenly across alts and Bitcoin. What I'm trying to distinguish is that doesn't mean that the alts are pumping. And if we look here, we have bear market from here to here, and Bitcoin dominance started going higher and higher and higher until we got to this level of resistance that came from 2019, and we started struggling here. This struggle was getting all investors confused. Are we in Bitcoin season? Are we going to have Bitcoin season? Are we going to have altcoin season? We don't know. Where should I put my money? In alts, in Bitcoin? No one knew, because it was constantly pumping, telling everybody, no, it's Bitcoin. Put your money in Bitcoin. And then it was dumping. No, put your money in alts. Put your money in alts. And everybody running in circles. And then we have this thing here that we reviewed in the channel late February. There was a breakout of the Bitcoin dominance, and we started saying, scratching our heads, oh, look, there's a breakout of Bitcoin dominance. What are we going to do with this? I don't trust it. I don't think Bitcoin dominance is going to go higher, we were thinking. But actually, it took 5 weeks for this to catch up with the momentum. That's your momentum breaking out, and then the Bitcoin dominance made it to 57. I was saying, this is telling us that we're going to go to the next level of resistance, which is located at 57.7. So far, we made it to 57. But I say these things and I try not to think about it too much, because if I think, I will say, no, it doesn't make sense. But actually, the chart tells that, and I have to just repeat what the chart says live. Whether I believe it or not, that's a separate thing. But it was saying that, and we went here. Coming here at 57 means we are in Bitcoin dominance, and it means that the alts are going to suffer. So from the moment we saw this breakout, we should have thought, stay away from alts. Stay away. Worst case, Bitcoin. Otherwise, USDT. But alts, never in a breakout like this.
Right.
And that ended up playing out.
Yep, for sure.
Now we are very low. So at these levels, 25 is where you start looking for opportunities in altcoins. And that's why I started reviewing some altcoins in the past 2-3 streams. And there's some good opportunities that are brewing and that we need to pay attention. But for now, let's see what's the most important thing. What is Bitcoin going to do next? Because there's no point of looking into the alts if Bitcoin is going to crash to 48K, because you're going to build your position of alts and then you're going to get punished again. And
right, because Bitcoin's going to pump off of that bottom.
Yeah. So the alts might need to wait a little bit until we get confirmation that Bitcoin has found some sort of bottom and it goes sideways, because the flow of the money is from Bitcoin into Ethereum, top market cap, and then the lower cap. We cannot skip that flow. We need to wait until the king first decides where's the next stop. 48K, 51, 55, 60, what's the bottom, and what's my sideways? sideways, and then we start looking for Ethereum in the rest of the alts. For now, we're just having a play with some alts here in this list and seeing which one is going to break out first.
I like that alt season chart. I hadn't seen that one before.
The alt season. Yes, very cool. Very cool. Do you do TA of alts as well, or are there any alts that you're interested?
I'll do TA of anything. Okay, but I don't track a lot of them. There's, I've always been, since I got into crypto, years ago, I kept telling myself, oh, one day I'm looking for the coins with fundamentals. And then, we learned very quickly that fundamentals didn't really matter in crypto. But I think that we're getting to a point where that's starting to evolve, right? Where the market is starting to mature. And that's what I really want to see in this game. As long as meme coins like SHIB are dominating the market, then and dominating the narrative, then I think this is a relatively immature asset class. And so, I want to see the projects that are legitimate, that have real use cases, that are doing something, start to thrive. And so I do, I have a love-hate relationship with coins like Solana and Matic. Solana has failed so many times. I don't know how it can thrive, with the exception of the fact that there's a large community behind it that seems to be keeping it afloat. Matic has always been interesting to me. Litecoin is one that has always, it's like a sleeper, right? Litecoin has always been interesting to me. It's been a staple in crypto for a long time. It's been consistent. There were even times when they were sponsoring our local sports teams here in Miami. Miami Dolphins had a sponsorship from Litecoin for a while, and that got my attention. What did they do with it? Pretty much nothing. So you got to wonder where the substance is on those things, and I hope that they will materialize, sooner than later. My partner is very heavy in DeFi and has a lot of interest in some assets over there that I look at, but I'm not married to any of them yet, because I just haven't seen things materialize the way that I would like to. So for the way that I'd like to trade and the way that I like to invest, I stay focused on just a limited amount of stuff. So at the moment, I do have, along with my Bitcoin position, I do have a little bit of ETH, and I do have a little bit of Litecoin. Tried to get some more over the weekend, and it didn't quite reach my target. And I'm in and out of Matic and stuff like, Doge is like, it's an opportunity coin. It's not something that I hold. I see opportunity. Elon flirts with it from time to time, like possibly it could be part of a payment platform on X. So that is of interest to me. But the fact that nothing has really materialized yet, and at one point he even had the Doge logo on his profile.
Yeah.
And so I bought that, and I've sold it since, right? Made my money and ran. So coins like that, I look for opportunities at the moment. And in terms of what I will trade, I'll let my MTF mean reversion bot pick up anything, and scalp those without really paying a whole lot of attention to them, unless it's a coin that I want to hold, right? So for the moment, right now I have it mostly focused on Bitcoin, just so I can put resources over there and buy dips with it.
That's nice. I have a question for you. Apart from the events, the recent events that are going on with the world, are there any economic events in the calendar for this week? Should we expect any particular day with extra volatility, do you think?
Gosh, you know what? What is this week's economic calendar? Let me look really quick.
I just see the unemployment claims, actually.
Yeah, we have today retail sales, blah blah blah. Tomorrow, housing is important. Housing and building permits that kind of lead to housing These are things that are lagging indicators. I think that unemployment and housing are probably two of the laggiest of the lagging indicators that the Fed is looking at.
Mhm.
And so that I think is an important one. Of course, we always get our Thursday, jobless claims reports. So those will be interesting to watch, and then home sales down here on Thursday as well, right? And in terms of what we're seeing lately, it's like we have to see, in my opinion, it's likely going to take a large miss on expectations, right? A super hot number or a super cold number to really have an impact. Right now the market is wondering whether, we went from 6 rate cuts to 3 rate cuts on the table, and now the market is wondering if we're going to get any rate cuts before the end of the year. And I still think that there's a good chance that we do, but I also think that there's growing sentiment for less than 3 at this point. And, the Fed seems to be positioning themselves for that. They tend to paint themselves into a corner. Powell does a good job of telegraphing their intentions all the time. I think he's very consistent in that manner. I think he's doing a good job in a difficult scenario. Now we could discuss whether they started too late. That's neither here nor there at this point, because that's history. It's done. It came and went, right? And so with what's in front of them, what I wish is that they could actually be nimble enough to cut rates at some times, and maybe at some point bump it up a tenth if they needed to. But they get married into it's either all up or all down. There's no in between, right? And
Mhm.
so I think this is a very difficult thing for them to navigate. Anything on Friday? No, but we have these Fed officials speaking pretty much every day, kind of telegraphing their sentiment on what's going on, and I think this makes it easier for Powell to come out when he comes out to say, "Hey, we're adjusting our thinking from what we were."
Cool. So I think maybe the volatility is gonna come from new developments in Iran, and I think.
That's highly likely, right?
Mm,
Certainly high probability, and hey, we have President Trump on trial for the first time ever today, starting too. So
yeah,
there's that.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in the market that I think it's important to stay in tune to, but
Uh-huh.
it's also important to stay in tune to what the fundamentals are of the assets you're investing in. And I just don't see what has changed in terms of the narrative heading in to the halving, with the footnote that corrections can still happen. A correction could still happen anytime between here and here, and a correction could happen anytime right after this. And so we could visit this level, or this level, or this level. None of this is off the table. Anybody who says we're never going back to those prices again
No,
hasn't been in this market very long.
no. Let me actually show you the bull market support band. I love that band. It's not music, actually.
I was going to say you should get them to play your intro.
Yeah. Someone was asking who's that song. There's a website called Suno, and in this suno.com, and for free you get some credits, and you can describe using just writing, describe your song. And I just said I need an intro for my streams, and the I need a song related to crypto. This is the channel is called the Trading Parrot, and it came out with such a ridiculous lyrics. Every time I hear it, I feel a bit shy and a bit like laughing. And this is the bull market support band, and I know it because of Benjamin Cohen. He's got a
Mhm.
big channel, and during the bull market is support, during the bear market is resistance. But now we are kind of misbehaving, because we should be bouncing on this and not staying too far from it too long. And in my opinion, this move here is quite deviating from it too much. So when you do that, you have to start paying your debt. It's almost like this is due for correction and to come back. But what people get freak out because they think, okay, it went this high and it needs to come down straight to 55. No, things take time. You need to have an idea of how long it could take. It could project here, it could land there at this level, and that will fulfill your theory of a sideways, right? So we could do this and then touch this and then pump from there, and then we can put checkbox. We went
Right.
to the bull market support band, we pay our duty. But if you dump and you dump straight away, this is right here waiting for us at 54. But I'm not saying it needs to happen that way. It could be as a sideways, it could be post a liquidity graph. Bitcoin could push higher here, make a higher high, and from here dump and making even more painful, because that will liquidate first all the shorts and then all the longs and come back. So you need to be prepared for everything. Just know that your bull market support band is here, and it's rare that being in a bull market without paying respect to it. It works really well.
That's cool. I like it. See, we have some questions in the
Oh yeah.
in the chat.
So we have a question here. Do you think this is the last bull run cycle for huge potential gains for crypto as the government gets more involved and implements regulations?
We've been waiting for regulations since we started, and talk about slow, talk about patience, right? I don't know that the government is the issue as much as the institutional integration is the issue. What are your thoughts on it?
Uh, it, it depends, because if we are talking about last bull run, we are talking just about Bitcoin. I think it's quite the opposite, in my opinion. With the ETFs getting involved, more countries. Now, I think this week, I haven't been following that much the fundamentals, but I remember reading that this week there was something coming in Hong Kong, like an approval for an ETF.
ETF, yeah, it
So
actually, I think it happened today.
sure, so that is again bullish. We're just having some shakes coming in from the timing.
I think the question may be more of how much upside potential is there, right? How much upside volatility might we see? I mean, I'm not sure when you started trading crypto, but when I started, you could see, we were scalping alts with MTF, with the mean reversion indicator, and to see 20, 30, 40% moves and higher in a day was not uncommon. And we don't see so much of that anymore. Obviously, there's more people in the market. The assets are maturing. And with the ETFs, we've seen, this week may be some of the more significant volatility that we've seen since the ETFs were introduced. And I think that market is maturing. I've said it before, but I think that the ETF market is maturing and realizing how Bitcoin likes to trade. And I think that they may be okay with letting it trade that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that means that those large institutions put guardrails up over the weekend to protect their portfolios and their clients, that remains to be seen. But I don't think, like, in the early halvings, every halving or after every halving, the growth that followed in the year after the halving was obviously very, very significant. But in the early days, you're talking thousands of percent. I think the last one was much less than that, and this one likely is also scaling back in terms of upside. I don't think anybody expects to see price go up 1,000% after the halving, at least not in this cycle. Maybe over time, perhaps, but I don't see that happening in this cycle.
There's an expectation, though, that thanks to the ETFs, that there's going to be a continuous stream and new, fresh sources of, obviously, people investing.
But you remember when it first started, when the first, after the initial pullback, right? and when the ETF demand was up 10, 12x of what daily supply is.
Mhm.
Okay, if that demand stays at that level, then we have, we would be looking at a 20 to 24x demand versus supply coming up after the halving. It doesn't look like the demand is still as high as it was in that first 2 months. So, if that tapers off, now there will be additional waves of institutions coming into the game.
Mhm.
So I think that will continue to drive demand, but I don't know if we'll see it as robust all at once like we did in this first wave,
Yeah.
right? There was 10 years of pent-up demand.
Mhm. But also, if you're looking for upside, like big, massive upside, I think the place to look into is to follow Bitcoin as a guidance for what is our current trend
Mhm.
and whether there's an environment that is too risky or less risky. So Bitcoin is going to tell us that, and then trade the alts, because the alts are doing what in early days Bitcoin was used to do. Many alts are just going crazy, and that's the main reason people are trading those. It's almost like if you were trading Bitcoin, but on leverage, right? Because they just today I was looking at the movers, and I think I saw core at some point today at 78% in a single day. So of course, with that upside, with that reward, with that sort of magnitude, you also need to consider that the downside is huge as well. So that might have done 78%, but maybe it has lost. It could lose 200. It could go down as well, big, 50, 60, 70, 80. It wouldn't be weird after they dump this thing. I don't know anything about core, by the way. I need to look
Right.
into this one.
All I know is anything that goes up 80% or 50% in a day
Yeah.
um, usually has a retrace of some sort.
Yeah. Can we look
I know
into
nothing about I know nothing about core. I have no idea what's driving that. I haven't heard of it until you told me about it today. So
but it's funny.
take that for what it's worth.
We started the stream and it was at 78%, and now it's
Right.
at 50%. So it's having some correction just because Bitcoin is also pulling back. So it's crazy. Anyways, some people are asking, can we look into fire charts? And actually, I would love you to show where, if we compare the liquidity of the ask and the bid, maybe on the daily or weekly, to see that comparison,
Okay, sure.
just to see if we have enough cushion if we fall.
Sure. And that's this is something I look at every single day, right? And we had talked when we looked at the higher time frame chart about the difference in the upside liquidity versus the downside liquidity. And you can see that, the brighter spots equals more volume. And so we have a lot more overhead than we do down below. But look at this area right here. If liquidity dampens volatility, meaning it's hard for price to move through deep liquidity, a lack of liquidity or thin liquidity amplifies it. It would take very little for price to move up to 66.8, and you have a little bit of friction. I look at this as friction, right? This is greasy. You can fly through this. All it takes is, a brown mega whale to make a $2 million order, and price is going to shoot. Guess what? It's why they're not making $2 million market orders right here, because of the slippage. We see, so you could see, while purple historically dominates Bitcoin's, price action, sometimes they can't make large orders because of the slippage. So you can see them disguising themselves in the smaller order classes. Maybe it's yellow, maybe it's green, maybe it's red, and any combination of that. So it's always worth noting that whales can disguise themselves as smaller order classes, but retail cannot do the same. They don't have they don't have the resources to disguise themselves as whales. So that's the first thing I'm looking at here. To the downside, we do have increasing liquidity down here at this 60K level with, that's 20 million with a little bit overhead. There's another 11 million, a couple million there, another 6 million here. Okay, so this is insulating, or actually more than likely front running these levels down here. And then you see some cushioning down here, down to the 58K level with another 10 million down at that range. I don't find a lot of comfort in this, because if we look even lower, it's thin. If we lost this level, it's easy to get to 55. And if we go deeper, we look at higher time frames, we can see deeper in the order book.
Yeah.
So you see you have a decent cushion here, not a huge one, but this will absorb. And as price moves closer to these levels, you're going to see liquidity moving, right? Now, whether we see liquidity stacking in here, or we see a rug pull, I mean, a rug pull really becomes a game changer at this point.
The way
look even lower, right? Below, what do we have? Nothing. Thin. It's very, very thin here. So all this liquidity here showed up after we had this first dump. So nothing attracts liquidity to the range like price action moving closer to that range. What we need to see is a big bright spot right anywhere between here and here to send price up. Not happening yet.
Well, the way I look at this cloud of red is kind of like the sentiment. And the sentiment, particularly because it can change anytime. Like
Sure.
if they say something really positive about the things going on between Israel and Iran, then people are going to say, okay, we're done. We got over this thing. It's time to buy, and everybody's going to start buying, and you're going to be left thinking, hey, wait a minute, but there was no bid. And then you're going to see something appearing after, and that's when there's a very, very fast shift in sentiment.
Right. I often say liquidity equals sentiment, right? And we looked at these price levels here as potential targets if price breaks down further. We looked at these potential landing zones, but look at where the sentiment is at the moment. There's just nothing in that sub 50K, right? There's nothing in that 44 to 48K range. Nothing meaningful anyways. And there's very little in that 50 to 52K range. So at the moment, this is where the party is. This is where the drama is.
Interesting to see that there is liquidity at 80K. Doesn't that tell you, I mean, at least to me, it tells me that some people thinking that price might get there eventually to 80K.
I see it up to about 85. Even a little bit higher than that, up to 90 probably. We're limited by what we can see in the order book, but that's a pretty full view right there. So yes, there's sentiment that there could be a wick up that way, and there's not a lot of sentiment for going down below 50K at the moment.
I got last two questions for you, Keith. The first one is, are you using crypto bots like 3 commas? If yes, then what kind of bot strategies are you using in this current market?
I'm using the only thing I'm using is and full disclaimer, might be a little jaded here. I own the company, or I'm a partner in the company, but our MTF mean reversion indicator is one that I'm very comfortable with. It is, and I use it on 3 commas. You can set the parameters here of what the deviation is that you want, but this is a very simple principle of mean reversion. And for those who aren't familiar with it, mean reversion simply means that price likes to return to mean. So if you look at this white line, the center line as mean, you can see that when price dips away from mean, it likes to spring back. And this works in both directions, right? It works when price gets above mean. I'm trying to find a spot where we were actually up there. It works in both directions. So I use it, here you go, price above mean, and it reverted. So this particular setup is at a 3% deviation from mean. I can set this as deep as I want or as shallow as I want, so that I can, and I actually set up a grid of different bots, and I just turn on and turn off. I'll keep my deeper deviation ones on all the time, right?
Let's do this, Keith, because we are over time, and I know you need to run any moment. Shall we say that next Monday we review your setup? I also have plenty of questions because I'm seeing that you're running it in the 1 minute, and I want to know how you connect it, how you backtest it, and everything. So maybe we can look into that by the end of the stream next Monday, if that's okay with you. And
sounds good.
I'm just gonna leave you with the last question, and hopefully it's a short answer because it's already 1 past.
Yeah, I got an appointment to go to. Appreciate you keeping me on time. What's the current narrative for crypto now? Would you say, would it be ETFs or AI? I've been seeing a lot of ETF crypto projects coming up, so want your thoughts on that. I think the ETF narrative is not going away, and I don't think the halving narrative is going away. Those to me are fundamental. They're fundamental of the overlying market, right? Or underlying market, I should say. AI obviously has been one of the hot narratives, but I think that we see a lot of rotation through the narratives based on where the communities are, what kind of support that they're getting. I think that we will eventually see another wave of ETFs, and that those will drive more demand and ultimately drive Bitcoin price up. Not sure when that's coming. I know that a lot of them are going through the due diligence process. When you start talking about those kinds of institutional players, they don't move quickly, right? It's kind of like the government. They don't move quickly. They move slowly, and they're not concerned about whether they get to buy Bitcoin at 60K, at 50K, or 70K. If they think it's going to 300, they're good, because they're used to buying assets that, if they have 15% in a year, they're doing well. In comparison, Bitcoin has the potential to do much more. So I think that the narratives will rotate in terms of niche categories in crypto, but the ETF is not going away anytime soon, and that's going to be there for a while. And now that Hong Kong just approved, I think that brings in a new wave of interest from that part of the world.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming in today. I can see there's a lot of people connected. 360 people are watching.
Awesome.
That's really lovely. So we're going to continue doing this every Monday. Sorry, we were 1 hour late. We're going to try to be next week at 4. Just having to pick up my daughter right at that spot in time. Hopefully next week we go back to the normal time. And thanks for coming as well.
New dad vibes, bro. I'm excited for you. And you're on a journey that you can't imagine right now.
Yeah, I believe you. I agree with that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Keith, for coming as well.
Thanks for
looking
having me,
forward
as
to the
always.
next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Me too. Thanks, guys.